August 6, 1945. Farm Hall, England. 6 p.m. The evening light slants through tall Georgian windows, casting long shadows across a drawing room that smells of old wood and cigarette smoke. 10 men sit scattered in armchairs and sofas, some reading, some playing cards, some staring at nothing. They wear civilian clothes now, but their postures carry the residual stiffness of laboratory discipline. Outside, English countryside rolls toward a horizon they cannot reach. Inside, they wait. They have been waiting for 3 months. These are not ordinary prisoners. Werner Heisenberg leans against a bookshelf, his fingers tracing the spine of a physics text he has already read twice. Otto Hahn sits near the radio, methodically filling his pipe. Carl Friedrich von Weizsäcker stands at the window, watching birds he cannot name. They are the architects of Germany's atomic program, the men who chased the same ghost America has just caught. At precisely 6 o'clock, the BBC Evening News begins. The announcer's voice cuts through the room's stillness with the practiced clarity of wartime broadcasting. They arrived here in July, plucked from the ruins of the Third Reich by British intelligence operatives who understood what they represented. Operation Epsilon, the systematic capture and isolation of Germany's nuclear scientists. The Allies needed to know one thing. How close had Germany come to building the bomb? So they built them a gilded cage. Farm Hall, a manor house in Godmanchester, 17 miles from Cambridge. Comfortable beds, adequate food, books, a garden, and microphones hidden in every room, in the walls, beneath tables, inside light fixtures. British intelligence listens to everything. Every conversation, every argument, every moment of despair. For 3 months, these men have lived in a strange purgatory between defeat and uncertainty. They know Germany has surrendered. They know their families face an unclear future. They know their life's work lies in ruins somewhere between Berlin and the advancing Soviet front. But they do not know what comes next. They do not know if they will be tried as war criminals or recruited as assets. They do not know if their physics was brilliant or fatally flawed. What they believe, with the conviction of educated men who have seen the equations, is that no one has built an atomic bomb. Not yet. Perhaps not ever. The engineering challenges are too vast. The isotope separation too difficult. The critical mass calculations too uncertain. They believe this until 6:02 p.m. on August 6, 1945. A bomb of extraordinary power. The announcer's words arrive like a scalpel cutting through comfortable delusion. President Truman has announced that American forces have dropped a bomb of extraordinary power on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. The bomb, which harnesses the energy of atomic fission, is reported to be equivalent to 20,000 tons of TNT. The room freezes. Cards remain suspended between fingers. Hahn's pipe stops halfway to his mouth. Heisenberg turns from the bookshelf, his expression unreadable. For 3 seconds, no one speaks. For 3 seconds, the only sound is the radio's static hum and the distant call of an English crow. Then Hahn says very quietly, "They must have made a mistake." But his voice carries no conviction. It carries the hollow quality of a man watching his life's assumptions collapse in real time. Heisenberg moves toward the radio, as if proximity might change what he has heard. That's impossible. The separation of U-235 alone would require... Evidently not. Von Weizsäcker interrupts. His tone is flat, clinical, the voice of a theoretician confronting experimental data he cannot refute. Kurt Diebner stands abruptly, They're lying. It's propaganda. The Americans want Japan to surrender without invasion, so they invent a superweapon too. Then why announce it before they see if Japan surrenders? Heisenberg's question hangs in the air, unanswerable. The BBC continues, offering details. A single bomb, a single city. Casualties estimated in the tens of thousands. President Truman's statement references years of research, billions of dollars, secret facilities across America. Hans sinks deeper into his chair. His face has gone pale. If this is true, he whispers, if they have actually done it, then I am responsible for thousands of deaths. Germany, 1939 to 1945. The Uranium Club. The German atomic program began with brilliance and ended in paralysis. When fission was discovered in Berlin in 1938, Germany held every advantage. The world's best physicists, the world's best equipment, industrial capacity, and military urgency. They had Heisenberg, they had Hahn, they had the theoretical groundwork. But theory diverged from practice in ways they never anticipated. Heisenberg's calculations suggested they needed tons of heavy water, deuterium oxide, to moderate the nuclear reaction. They pursued reactor designs instead of bomb designs. They convinced themselves the engineering was impossible within wartime constraints. They told themselves, with equations as evidence, that no one could build a deliverable weapon before 1947 at the earliest. They were correct about the difficulty. They were wrong about the timeline. America, 1942 to 1945. The Manhattan Project. While German physicists calculated and reconsidered, America built. Not one laboratory, but dozens. Not hundreds of scientists, but thousands. Not careful resource allocation, but bottomless funding. General Groves mobilized the largest scientific industrial effort in human history. Oppenheimer gathered the best minds from across Allied nations. They built entire cities in the desert, Los Alamos, Oak Ridge, Hanford, dedicated to a single purpose. They chose gaseous diffusion for isotope separation instead of heavy water moderation. They pursued multiple paths simultaneously, burning through resources with American abundance. They tested their first device in New Mexico on July 16, 1945. 3 weeks later, Little Boy fell on Hiroshima. Back at Farm Hall, 7:30 p.m. The scientists have moved from the drawing room to the dining room, but no one eats. They cluster around the table like men at a funeral, speaking in rapid German that the microphones capture perfectly. Heisenberg paces. His voice rises with defensive energy. If they have actually achieved a controlled chain reaction in a deliverable weapon, then their isotope separation must be orders of magnitude more efficient than anything we calculated. Or, he pauses, recalculating silently. Or they used plutonium instead of uranium, a breeder reactor. But that would require... It doesn't matter what it requires, Hahn interrupts. His voice is hoarse. They did it. We didn't. That's the only relevant fact. Walter Gerlach, the physicist who coordinated Germany's nuclear research in its final chaotic years, sits with his head in his hands. I trusted you, he says to Heisenberg, not looking up. I defended your calculations to the high command. I told them it was possible. I told them you would deliver results. We did deliver results, Heisenberg snaps. We built the reactor. We achieved neutron multiplication, given time and resources. We had time. Gerlach's shout silences the room. We had 4 years. And where was our bomb? Where was our demonstration? Where was anything that justified the money and the men and the... His voice breaks. Hans speaks into the silence, very softly. We told ourselves it couldn't be done. Not because the physics was impossible, but because we needed to believe we hadn't failed. We needed to believe our defeat was inevitable, not chosen. 10 p.m. Hans' bedroom. Otto Hahn sits alone on the edge of his bed. He is 66 years old. He discovered nuclear fission 7 years ago in this very month of 1938, working with Fritz Strassmann and Lise Meitner in Berlin. It was supposed to be pure science, understanding the fundamental nature of matter. He won the Nobel Prize for it. Now his discovery has incinerated a city. In the drawing room below, he can hear the others still arguing, Heisenberg defending the theoretical soundness of their approach. Deibner insisting the BBC report must be exaggerated. Von Weizsäcker calculating casualties with the detached precision of a man solving a differential equation. Hahn considers the distance between laboratory and weapon. He thinks about the moment he first observed barium in his neutron-bombarded uranium samples. The signature of a split atom, an impossible result that rewrote physics. He thinks about publishing those results, sharing them freely with the international scientific community, because that's what scientists did. Knowledge was meant to be shared. He thinks about Hiroshima. Someone knocks. Von Weizsäcker enters without waiting for permission. Otto, you need to eat something. I discovered fission, Hahn says. Not to von Weizsäcker, to the room, to history. I am responsible. You are a scientist. You pursued knowledge. What others do with that knowledge is my responsibility. Hahn's voice is steady now, carrying the terrible clarity of a man who has stopped negotiating with truth. When you hand a child a loaded gun and claim you were simply curious about ballistics, you do not escape culpability by citing scientific method. Von Weizsäcker sits beside him. We didn't build the bomb. The Americans did. We showed them it was possible. We opened the door. The fact that we lacked the will or resources or clarity to walk through it ourselves changes nothing. Then what do we do with that? Hahn looks at his hands. They are steady. They are the same hands that isolated isotopes and split atoms and proved the impossible. We live with it, he says. We carry it. We do not pretend it weighs nothing. August 7th, morning. British intelligence reviews the transcripts from the previous night's recordings. The German scientists' shock has crystallized into something else, a harsh accounting of their own failure. Heisenberg has filled 3 chalkboards with calculations, working backward from the reported yield to possible bomb designs. His conclusion, reached around 3 a.m., is devastatingly simple. The Americans must have achieved isotope enrichment at scales he considered industrially impossible. Or they found a plutonium path he dismissed as theoretically unsound. Either way, his fundamental assumption that atomic weapons were too difficult to build during wartime was wrong. Not wrong about the physics, but wrong about human determination and American industrial capacity. Deibner has stopped insisting it's propaganda. The BBC's morning bulletin provides more details. Photographs, survivor testimonies, Truman's full statement. The evidence becomes undeniable. Gerlach has not left his room. When von Weizsäcker checks on him, he finds the coordinator of Germany's nuclear program sitting motionless, staring at the wall. I told Speer we could do it, Gerlach says. I promised him. And I believed it. I believed we were close. But we were never close, were we? We were chasing a theoretical possibility while the Americans were building a factory. The others avoid discussing what Germany might have done with an atomic bomb if they had succeeded. That conversation leads to places none of them want to go. Instead, they focus on the technical failure, the scientific puzzle of how America achieved what they could not. It is easier to be wrong about engineering than to confront being complicit in genocide. August 8th, afternoon. The garden. Han walks alone among the roses. The English summer is gentle here, unmarked by war. Bees move between flowers with the purposeful efficiency of nature, operating according to plan. Everything grows. Everything continues. He thinks about Lisa Meitner, his Jewish colleague who fled Germany in 1938, escaping the machinery of extermination by mere weeks. She understood the implications of fission immediately, coined the term, calculated the energy release. She refused to work on weapons. She chose exile over compromise. He stayed. He told himself he was protecting German science, preserving something worth saving for after the war. He told himself he wasn't really helping the regime, just pursuing knowledge. Now he understands. There was no neutral ground. There was never neutral ground. Von Weizsäcker joins him on the path. They walk in silence for a while, listening to bees and distant sheep. "Do you think," von Weizsäcker finally asks, "if we had succeeded first, if we had built the bomb before the Americans, would we have used it?" Han doesn't answer immediately. The question is too large, too terrible. "I don't know," he admits. "I hope not. But I no longer trust my own judgment about what I would have done under different circumstances. The Americans used it. Yes? Does that make them... It makes them willing to end a war at the cost of a city. Whether that choice was moral or monstrous or simply necessary, I cannot judge. I only know that the weapon exists now. It will always exist. We cannot unknow what we have learned." They reach the garden wall, the limit of their permitted world. Beyond it, England continues. Beyond England, Japan burns. Beyond Japan, the future reshapes itself according to new and terrible rules. Heisenberg keeps saying we did good science, von Weizsäcker says. That our physics was sound, even if our engineering failed. He's right. Our physics was sound. That's not a comfort. That's the problem. In 1946, Otto Hahn receives the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for the discovery of nuclear fission. He accepts it with an acceptance speech that barely mentions physics. Instead, he speaks about responsibility, about the weight of knowledge, about the distance between understanding the atom and understanding what humanity will do with that understanding. The other scientists of Farmhall scatter to different futures. Heisenberg returns to Germany, rebuilding physics under Allied supervision, never quite reconciling his brilliance with his failure. Von Weizsäcker becomes a philosopher, spending his remaining decades trying to articulate an ethics of science in the nuclear age. But on August 6, 1945, in a manor house in England, they learned a simple truth that no equation could capture. Some knowledge, once discovered, cannot be undiscovered. Some doors, once opened, cannot be closed. And the men who open those doors do not escape responsibility by claiming they were merely curious about what lay beyond. The atom split. The world split with it. And everyone who touched that knowledge carries the weight of what they made possible. Whether they built the bomb or merely proved it could be built,